Okay, guys, so the AnyLogic 8 cloud. We had a great year, and we did have a number of different things, both in this direction and in the traditional direction of adding things, features, and functions to the AnyLogic software. But I don't really want to concentrate on things like road traffic library and other things that we added this year. I want to talk exclusively about what cloud technology can bring to simulation modelers and people who use simulations. But before we actually go into the cloud stuff, let's look at the a little bit at the AnyLogic development history. So it won't take long, don't worry. So we started in the year 2000 being purely agent-based simulation tool. Then pretty much with the help of Lyle and Mark, we added system dynamics. And so as I keep saying, these guys were working with us, patiently leading us during the early stages of AnyLogic development. So we added system dynamics, then we added discrete events in the form of the enterprise library. Now this is process model library, then pedestrian library. Then we added things like 3D animation, rail library. And our only attempt to do something different was the portal runthemodel.com, where simulation models were running as applets. After that, we introduced version 7 with space markup. We added GIS maps. We integrated them well into the product. We added fluid library, built-in database, and the latest thing is road traffic library that we demoed this morning. So that was our history during the past 16 years. And we wanted to do something different. So we wanted to, first of all, entertain ourselves with different kind of software development. And after focusing for 15 years on how people build models, after focusing on different kinds of modeling languages like state charts, process flow charts, system dynamics, adding things and features, we decided to focus on how people actually use models. Use means run, optimize, compare results, deliver to your clients, share with your colleagues, discuss, collaborate, store. And this is what AnyLogic 8 Cloud is about. Don't worry, the traditional development line is in place. We have a huge database of your suggestions, our own ideas, how the main desktop tool can be improved. So this development goes in parallel. The timing obviously is right for the AnyLogic 8 Cloud because you guys are ready and I think willing to benefit from the cloud technologies. The cloud computing infrastructure is in place and ready to host simulations. HTML5, which is an important part of the AnyLogic 8 Cloud, is mature enough to serve as simulation front end, which I think you will see in a minute. And we all know that AnyLogic's experimental framework, I mean, the one that we have in our main desktop tool can be much improved. So we decided, why don't we do it in a different space? Why don't we do it in a cloud environment? Also, as we all know, Java applets are dead, so runthemodel.com needs a new life. So we are actually the first simulation tool vendor to provide you with a full spectrum of cloud technologies to help you run and share your simulations. And not just, I'm having this in red now, because it would be very limited view on things to think of a cloud as just a number of, massive computational computing resources that you have out there. A cloud is bigger than that, and I hope to demonstrate this with Nikolay during this presentation. So With that said, this is what you currently can do with your with the current release with your models. So you obviously have your desktop application where you develop, program, and debug your models, and you can run them locally on the same machine. You can also export them as a standalone Java application and leave it with a client or colleague. That function is in the professional version. You also could export it to runthemodel.com or to your own web server, and then others were able to run the model in their browser. I mean, the whole thing was going into the browser and executed there as an applet. This is dead. Applets are no longer supported, which I think is good because we're now developed much better technology to run models in the cloud. So this is the AnyLogic 8 scenario. You still have your desktop application where you develop models. So the model development environment basically stays the same with very little changes. Run locally, and still you're able to export it to as a Java application. That all remains untouched. But we're adding just one thing. You can export a AnyLogic model to the cloud. And then it gets well, in our case, the default is the Amazon cloud, but we'll also will support deployment or uploading to the private cloud. Now, models are executed in the cloud on a node or a number of nodes, and obviously you will be able to use as many nodes as needed. And you have a lightweight browser interface where you will be able to set up experiments, customize dashboards, run your simulations, analyze, compare results, leave comments, do some kind of output analysis, and share your simulations with the other modelers, or with your client, or with the community. And because the client side of that is very simple, it's all works in the browser, it's all like HTML5 and JavaScript, that means that tablets and smartphones are in. So basically, after exporting the model to the cloud, you don't need this Java stuff anymore. The model continues to live up there, and there's a number of things you can do with the model without actually going to the model editor, without having anything installed, without copying any files. Now, just a note on why we don't port the model editor to the browser. Well, there are a number of reasons. One of them is it's a complex graphical editor, just similar to like Photoshop maybe, and you need keyboard and you need mouse, which means basically that even if it was able to run it in a browser, you still are limited to your laptops and desktops. And also, there are some useful features like code completion and Java stuff that will be challenging, or let's say possible but time-consuming to move to the browser. So our decision for now, the model editor stays the same, but we may reconsider it in the future. Next is AnyLogic Cloud Demo, and I'll welcome Nikolay.
Thank you.
To give us a tour.
So now let's switch to AnyLogic. This is AnyLogic 8. And you can see here it's a trauma center model. It's from AnyLogic examples. I think most of you know and have seen this model. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to export this model to the cloud and show you different aspects and the interface of our new online product. So here in the project's view, we have a new run configuration element, which is designed to define the model inputs and outputs. So AnyLogic Cloud will work with the model like this black box, and in this run configuration we choose which parameters will become inputs for our model and which data will be outputs. To the left we see a number of model parameters and outputs, some suggested possible inputs which could be added. So here I'll add opening and closing hours of emergency care unit of our trauma center and number of nurses parameter. And as for outputs, I'll add 2 histograms, length of stay in both units, emergency care and emergency department, and main values of this length of stay and utilization of nurses.
Mm-hmm. So can I comment on that? So what we're doing now, we're defining the interface of the model when it will be living in the cloud. The model itself may have many parameters and many outputs, which the model developer can use to run, to debug the model. But once the model is more or less ready, kind of ready for production, then you might want to limit access to those parameters, limit the number of outputs that are exposed in the cloud. So we have right now defined a very simple interface, 3 inputs and how many? 5 outputs of the black box. And in that black box will then be exported to the cloud.
Okay, now I simply press here the link export to AnyLogic Cloud. Save changes, and I've already logged in and choose here to create new model. The model is being built and uploaded to AnyLogic Cloud server. So this is web browser. Actually, this is Chrome, and this is the first login page because we are trying to open the model. This is my model, so I need to be logged in. I press here login, and so let me maybe switch to full screen here. Okay, this this is the main interface of our AnyLogic Cloud. So let me give you some quick tour on what is where. There is a header. We can see that we are logged in. So this is my profile page, and here are different tabs like my models, public models. So I switch to public models, and this section is actually the replacement of existing Run the Model website. So this is a collection of models which were created by, which can be created by different users and published to the community. So each one could, anybody could run any of these models. They are searchable. They are divided by categories and.
Yeah, so this is basically a collection of publicly shared models contributed by the community as well as by us. And so they are runnable, they are categorized, so you can search, you can, if the model developer provided sources of the model, they're downloadable if you want to edit them. Otherwise, you can just run them after login, or you can log in as a guest. And this is kind of free service that everyone will have access to.
And when I switch to my models, this is also a collection, but this collection contains only models. This collection contains my models, which I have previously created, and it also contains all the models which different model developers, consultants have given access to me. So all these models are accessible when I've logged in. So this is my collection, and let's go into our new trauma center model, which I've just uploaded. And I'd like to show you these settings of our model. Here, this is a page where you can enter model name, description, and different fields like categories, text, etc., which will be used when you decide to publish your model, or which can be used when you share your model with your colleagues and they want to search, for example, in a huge collection of models and find them. So the model can remain non-public, but it's also useful to use text, application areas, etc. We provide in AnyLogic Cloud a simple version control system which tracks versions of your model and allows you to download model sources, and AnyLogic will understand which version you are working on currently. You can collaborate with your colleagues, so you can work on the same model and upload versions, and they get updated models. And on sharing settings, there are options to give access to this model. You can give access to existing users, send a link to new users, and publish your model. Now let's experiment with our model. On this page, on the left, there is a sidebar with versions. Currently, our model has the only version number 1, and experiments. So to the right, we have a dashboard with inputs on top and outputs on bottom. And our experiment hasn't yet been run. Now I press run button, and you can see this progress. It's pretty fast. And what has happened? Our model has been just executed on a remote machine, on a remote node in Amazon Cloud, and the results of that execution were delivered to this laptop, and they are now shown in the web browser. So we have here 2 histograms and 3 simple numbers. Let's mention this nurses utilization. It's 0.5, and now we can change the number of units of nurses. So all these inputs are editable, they are changeable. If I type here, for example, 3, you can see outputs have disappeared. What does it mean? AnyLogic Cloud understands that for these inputs, model hasn't yet been run. And I need to press this run button again. And here are results for a new set of inputs. So here is 0.9 utilization. So it seems like we need to hire more nurses. And if I change back from 3 to 6, the data is automatically taken from server. So AnyLogic Cloud works with pairs of inputs and outputs. Each time you specify new inputs and press run button, and when the model is executed, AnyLogic Cloud stores the pair of inputs and outputs in its database. And if you or maybe your colleague later decides to make another experiment with the model and specifies some values of inputs which were already around, AnyLogic Cloud will automatically deliver and show the results. So there is a performance improvement, especially in experiments which require multiple runs. Now I will slightly modify our model and upload a new version here. So I switch to AnyLogic. Let's add one more output. And by the way, I will show you what the output is. This is our new element. I switch to palette, and on the analysis palette, we can see here new element output. This is like a scalar number or a different type, like Boolean, string, or etc. Some unit outputs with units. Here I use utilization of doctor resource pool of this one. Now when I switch to run configuration, sorry, I need to rename it. Okay, of course. In run configuration, now there is our newly created doctors utilization output, so I added to outputs list, and also I can change the name of output here. If you do not like the name which was automatically suggested, you can change it. Now I upload my model again. This wizard now it knows that we work with Drama Center model. There is a number of my models on AnyLogic Cloud, and it works currently with Drama Center. So I press finish here. This is version 2 of our model. If I switch to versions tab of our model settings, you can see here version 2. And I can make a new experiment with this version. Because AnyLogic, okay. So now these are results of our experiment. Let's create a different type of experiment. Let's create a Monte Carlo simulation. This makes this takes us closer to the stuff which becomes useful when we go to cloud, parallel distributed execution. By default, this Monte Carlo simulation experiment has a 10 replications number. So I run it, and it goes like pretty fast. We receive 4 histograms.
So our scalar outputs obviously become histograms when we run in Monte Carlo. So, and you see those 4 histograms are now on the screen.
They're not so meaningful data because we have to
a small number of
to few
replications.
Yeah, let's increase it. Say 200. What's happening now? AnyLogic Cloud is allocating a number of nodes and splitting the task of 200 replications to several machines. And these are results. Now they are more representative. And if I change, for example, to 210, AnyLogic Cloud, now it doesn't need to perform all 200 of replications, so it makes only the last 10. Because the first 200s are taken from database.
But of course, if we want to change the seed of the random number generator, that will be a new set of runs.
Yes, sure. And also, this view, this dashboard is customizable, so you can define different types of outputs, different input widgets here. So just pressing here pencil button, we can change, for this experiment, we can change number of nurses to be a distribution. And again, these are charts, we are not going to change them. So I press here save dashboard, and now number of nurses like from 1 to 10. Let's change from 3 to 7, for example. Please note that there are no outputs currently because inputs have changed. So let's do, for example, 50 replications. Now AnyLogic suggests randomly chosen values for parameters in this range and performs replications. Okay, now let's share this model. Like I'm a developer of the model, so I'd like to share it with my customer or my colleague. So I will share my model with Andrei.
Okay, please do.
I need this device.
Am I online here?
Yes. You need to log in.
Is it capital A okay or not okay?
Not okay. Andrei is currently logging in with his account to AnyLogic Cloud from iPad. And I'm going to invite him to this model.
Okay, so I'm now in my models. Not his models, my models.
I go to sharing settings here and type Andrei's email. I can choose the role of user or developer. Developers can add more experiments, change existing ones, invite more users, so the whole access. And users can only run experiments which were created by developers. So I've invited Andrei. Now, Andrei, please.
Do I need to refresh?
Refresh your page. And I will return to the experiment page.
Okay, I see it now. It's there, Trauma Center.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Now, here in the field of number of nurses, I will type 10. And you see there is no results here.
Okay, so which experiments?
This
one. Okay.
And
so in the number of nurses, I'll type also 10, right?
10, yeah.
And I'll press run here.
Yeah.
So basically what happened is that I executed a certain experiment from my, my browser, and that the results of that experiment, the results of that simulation immediately became available to everybody who has access to that model. And that's the reason why they appeared on Nikolay's screen, although he didn't run anything. Okay.
Okay, and all this was about experimenting, working with inputs, outputs. So if you or your customer wants to look inside the model which is being executed, we provide here the animation run mode. So I press play button here. And our model is being started on the remote node, on the remote machine. And in this mode, the model is being run somewhere, and AnyLogic Cloud captures the video of that model and transmits it to my laptop. So you can see this is a trauma center model, and it has 3D animation. It's not the video pre-recorded video, it's video currently running, and you can change the execution speed, pause the model, stop it, etc.
That was the first technology we tried, and it's there.
Yeah. And the second technology is interactive vector animation. So I press it here, play button, and you can see here patients are moving probably very fast. I can adjust the model execution speed, and the animation currently is inside the browser, so I can zoom in, zoom out, pan.
So this is true vector animation of the AnyLogic model that is in your browser with all these like arrows, numbers, shapes being graphical objects in the browser, and they're updated from the server where the model is being executed. So compared to video, this is much more exciting technology because it's 100% interactive. You can like do mouse over, you can click, you can have controls here, etc., etc. And this is basically the full animation. So right now we have the full 2D stuff here, and we're working on 3D in the browser in vector format. But for the moment, you will have video as your 3D view.
Okay, and now I'm going to show you some more examples of animation. I go to public models here, and let's show you this chocolate production model. Some like nice animation. I can change the speed. Well, in this model, chocolate bars are produced. So everything is moving here, everything is interactive. I can set the model to pause. So now it's paused. I can resume the model execution.
Show the charts.
And yeah, metrics. These are outputs of the model. These charts were added inside AnyLogic, so it's model animation, and you can observe the current model outputs.
Yeah, like faster, slower.
So it's fully interactive. You can adjust the model execution speed at any time. You can pause, resume model execution. You can click anywhere inside your model.
So basically, same thing as you have in Java 2D when running the model on your machine from the model development environment. But in this case, it's separated, like the animation. Again, interactive, full interactive is in the browser, and the model is executed elsewhere in the Amazon cloud.
One more model. This is a model of concrete production. Here I will run it in a video mode. Because it has a beautiful 3D animation. So like you have AnyLogic on your machine, but you only, what you need is only web browser or tablet or
smartphone, whatever. So exactly the same thing, same website works from any device, and it's 100% compatible with any browser, and you don't need to care about things like Java or etc. There's no Java anymore. Once you uploaded the model to the cloud, it just lives there.
Another example, in this model, here are different charts. So we provide a collection of charts to visualize outputs of your model. All of them are clickable, interactive, so we can zoom in. On mouse hover, you can read the numbers, etc. And this model is also runnable in animation mode. There's no 3D here. Okay, I think that's it for now. I can run more models.
Yeah, we can.
I like this stuff. When I press button here and something is executed somewhere, I don't know where, on some machine, I get results.
Yeah. Back to PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right, so summary of what's in AnyLogic 8. Once again, I want to emphasize that don't think of a cloud as just of a computing facility. It's, with regards to simulation, give you a lot more. Thing number one, you don't need to care about where is our sources of my model, because we do provide version control. So you can basically export the model to the cloud, and the sources are there, and you can retrieve any previous version. You can have comments on versions, etc., etc. So it's simple, but it's version control, which is in there. Then web interface. Web interface is great because it works everywhere. So you have just finished the model. It's immediately can be accessible to anyone. It's only a matter of sharing it, and then another person, no matter where that person is, and I know where there's internet access, can run it can experiment with it like using a phone. So imagine you are having, I don't know, breakfast with your colleague, and you can show the full thing just, using your phone. I think it's really great. Now, the way we this bullet here, the way we treat inputs and outputs is important, because all input-output pairs are stored and remembered by the AnyLogic cloud, which means that you don't need to rerun experiments. All ever run experiments are remembered, and they can be retrieved immediately and reused by all people who have access to the model. What else? RunTheModel.com is moving to here, as we said, so we will have all these hundreds of models available and in the AnyLogic cloud and runnable, again, anywhere. We do not depend on the applet technology anymore. We don't care whether browsers do or don't support applets, because all we need on the client side is HTML5 and JavaScript, which every browser supports. What else? Custom dashboards. Nikolay showed you that you can customize how the model interface would look like when somebody else accesses the model. And obviously, for complex experiments, for like Monte Carlo, parameter variation, optimization experiments, it'll be a lot faster because we can allocate as many nodes as needed to run your multi-run experiments. Business model, just anticipating your question about how much and what's the pricing for that. Well, first, to a certain extent, will be free. Like running public models, like doing simple experiments with the public models, will be free of charge and will be available to anybody, even without logging to the AnyLogic cloud. All other uses will be subscription-based, but right at the moment where the pricing model is under development. So what we will do, we will let you guys experiment with it, be our beta testers, and after a while, we will work out the pricing model, the subscription model for the AnyLogic 8 cloud. And of course, again, anticipating you another question, what happened to the main application, the desktop model development tool? The pricing will not change much. Okay, so what's in our development pipeline? Very soon, we will open beta testing for the cloud version. I think tomorrow, we will open the invitation to be our beta testers. So please do visit our website like tomorrow or the day after. Please do leave your email. And once the cloud is available, we will invite you, and please become our beta testers. This is very important for us, because the more people start using the cloud, the better we can make it. So the final release is planned for spring 2017. And after that, next year, we will return, let's say, to our traditional development thread. The material handling library is what we will next deliver and add to the package of libraries that are already in there. So there you will see things like sophisticated conveyor networks, like conveyors with photo eyes, stations, robots, and also some nice stuff for simulation-based scheduling. So this is coming like end next year. And as to the other development thread that we have been talking about past a couple of conferences, AnyLogistics, you will find out tomorrow. So tomorrow there are two AnyLogistics related events. There is a presentation, which is 1 p.m. There's workshop at 3 p.m. where Timofey and Anatoly will show you the current state of the AnyLogistics product. So that is it with the AnyLogic Cloud presentation, and obviously we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Hi, good afternoon. Saurav here with Motion Tech. Thank you for the presentation. That was really good. As we start adopting the cloud and start running business simulations with hundreds of parameters, so what's your vision in terms of organizing this wide set of inputs?
Well, first of all, you know that right at the moment there is internal database that is linked with the model where you can store, thousands of input parameters. One way of treating that is that if you do not want the end user of the model to modify all of them, you can, let's say, create several scenarios in the database and expose let's say, the scenario name or as the end parameter. But if you really do want the end user to edit all of it, we will provide interface for database editing in the browser or uploading, for example, having a file, like Excel file, as a parameter. So in the cloud environment, you will be able to say, okay, please accept that Excel file or text file as a parameter. So this is one way of treating that. And the other way is that actually the model, which is executed somewhere in the Amazon node, it's still it's connected to the internet, right? So we will open, and Nikolay, please correct me if I'm wrong, we will open APIs so that the model can be, which runs in the cloud, can be a part of, let's say, data processing pipeline with interfacing other cloud services to provide input and process output data. Is that?
Oh, yeah. They have technical abilities to do that, and we will edit it if we decide, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what we showed you is a very simplistic scenario, right? You have few parameters, you don't have like hundreds of parameters, and you have a few outputs. But for more heavy, let's say, data-heavy inputs and outputs, you have other ways of representing them and feeding them to the model and out of the model.
As far as like scenario management goes, it was really cool to see that you could say 6 nurses, 3 nurses. Is there anywhere though that I could look and see a record that Saurav ran these combination of inputs? Maybe he put some notes in there on why he ran that combination of inputs or gave them a meaningful name. Is there kind of a scenario management screen anywhere?
Can you explain a little bit, what do you mean by scenario management?
Right. I guess if Saurav had those 3 inputs and he picked a certain combination and he said, well, this is the pessimistic spring scenario, then me as a fellow user, I could look and say, oh, this is Saurav's pessimistic spring scenario. Let me see what he did there, instead of just blindly seeing that.
Oh, you mean so instead of changing one by one, changing like several of them or having input sets?
Well, almost just like we have a version history of the model, have a version history of different scenarios that have been run.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Compare runs.
Yeah. So, Nikolay, maybe you can come back to the cloud environment. So, first of all, these experiments are nothing but input sets, right? So basically, each of them is a set of inputs, and if it has been run, then it also has a set of outputs. So the functional that is not yet in there, but it's kind of being it's in development. You will be able to choose 2 of them or any number of them and compare and say, I want to compare. So basically, this is one input set. This is different input set. You will be able to, this is the kind of compare button, right? And then you will be able to compare scenarios so on the same set of charts. So you can treat an experiment that is stored there as a set of inputs. Mm-hmm.
This is great. I love the switch from the applet to the HTML. I do have a question. With some of the big companies, I know this is an odd question, but not liking the fact of having their data moving to the cloud, is there ability that we can benefit from this type of sharing service, but not necessarily in the cloud, but in a sort of a web-based local servers?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. Great question again. I will maybe even extend it. For sure there are companies that will not be willing to have their data and their models uploaded to even secure Amazon cloud, right? So for those clients, we will be able to deploy the same thing on their private cloud. Because it's not heavy, it's a lightweight thing that we have developed. It's pretty simple and portable, and it works on the Amazon cloud. It will work on any private cloud, any similar cloud, without no problem at all. It's only a matter of contracting us to come and install it. So this is not a problem. It's not tied anyhow, or it doesn't depend on the Amazon services. No.
Yes, that was a very nice presentation and very good work you guys are doing. But I was kind of imagining that because with the neutral simulation and also Monte Carlo and all that, are you looking into the aspect of, let's say, deep learning and using genetic and neural network algorithm? Let's say you want to do some medical imaging for the brain and simulate it and all those kind of stuff. Is it something you're looking
do we plan on doing what?
Like you're looking at other algorithms like genetic and neural network and all those stuff. I'm not sure.
Genetic?
Algorithms, neural
network. Genetic algorithms. Right, okay. So are you talking about optimization algorithms?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I see. So optimization will be one of the standard experiments available in the cloud. And as you know, optimizers that work with simulation softwares are called so-called black box optimizers, right? Because they can make no assumptions about the form of the function between inputs and outputs. So those optimizers typically would employ a number of methods, including genetic algorithms, including taboo search, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely yes. So there will be standard optimizer available in the AnyLogic cloud. And as any black box optimizer, it will, I think, employ genetic algorithms as well. But you know that AnyLogic is customizable, so to a certain extent, this will be customizable as well.
Here. Thanks for the introduction. My question is about exporting the results to the database. Does running on the cloud support exporting some results to a database? Or it's just we can see the results as a graph or output variables?
There will be an option to view results of model run of several model runs in a table. For example, will be option to export results of a particular run or several runs to, for example, to Excel file, etc., to be downloadable. If we are speaking about exporting data from the running model, this was a question like connecting a running model outside through the internet with some instances. which could contain database. And for the model, also there is an option if your model contains database inside, like a built-in database, and after you execute this model, this database is somehow modified, so model has written some data. AnyLogic Cloud, by default, in such experiments, AnyLogic Cloud will not store such outputs like database or large files. They will be deleted. But there will be an option to run the model in some special mode, so that after the model execution, you could download the results of that model execution, like database files, to your computers to open locally.
Mm-hmm. So again, this is a very simplistic interface, like few inputs, few graphs as outputs. But if you want more, you will be able to get access to the result, that the traces that the model leaves while it's being executed on the node, right? So yes, you will be able to access those more massive data that may be in there. All right, thank you guys. Thank you, Nikolay.